So now we move on to the topic of what do I need in order to start doing some groundwork. And there are a number of pieces of apparatus and tools that we can use for groundwork, and some of them really help to improve the communication and the results of doing groundwork. So let's take a look at some of the equipment that we need to use in order to carry out good groundwork. Some of these pieces of equipment are quite essential, and then other pieces of equipment aren't quite so essential, but they're still nonetheless rather handy. So the most important piece of equipment that I probably have and I use on a daily basis is this 12 to 14 foot training line, and I'm sure that most of you are familiar with this standard 6 to 8 foot lead line. The reason that we don't really use one of these is that it has such limitations in terms of length that it doesn't really offer you a good scenario whereby you can communicate effectively with your horse, and you can also read your horse's feedback and respond appropriately. And also, if you are in the circumstance where your horse does decide to pull away from you, then this rope does not offer you enough length to necessarily hold on to them effectively. Well, the 6 to 8 foot lead line is something that I would avoid using for groundwork, and as I say, I would opt for this 12 to 14 foot training line as standard. So you have the 12 to 14 foot rope which you can use to communicate with your horse both visually and through feel. You can use the rope to swing and motivate your horse, or you can use the rope to draw your horse back to you mentally and physically. Okay, so it's really best thought of as a communication tool. We also could use a stick and string, and the other thing that we can use to communicate with the horse is this flag. It's important to understand their purpose, and their main purpose is a communication tool. You can use it to motivate the horse, so you could use it to drive or send the horse away from you, but you can also use it as a visual reference for the horse to connect to and actually draw their attention and focus back to you. They need to have a balanced understanding of that. It shouldn't be too much that it means motivation, and it shouldn't be too much that it just means connection and they don't need to respond to it. If we have too much of one and too little of the other, we're going to have an imbalance in terms of that training tool. So all the time we're looking to understand what it is that tool offers us, how we use it correctly, and how we can communicate with the horse and time things up so that there's minimal confusion and maximise the potential of your good results. And that's the main purpose of these. So it's worthwhile taking the time to get familiar with these tools and really learn how they work and how to use them most effectively, because it's largely based upon timing and smooth operation and knowing when to apply the pressure, knowing when to remove the pressure. And if you can get as efficient and as effective as that as possible, then things are going to work out pretty well for you. If your timing is off or you're not smooth and efficient with the use of these tools, then obviously things are going to take a little bit of a while, and the results aren't going to be quite as satisfactory. Okay, so now we move on to the headwear, the headgear of the horse. Obviously standard head collar. There's no reason why you can't really use one of these. You may find one of these a little bit more effective in certain circumstances, in particular if your horse tends to lean into pressure quite a bit or tends to try and get away from you. But to be honest with you, if you've got good timing, good communication and good connection, then you're perfectly adequate with a normal head collar. So yeah, I mean it's really these days, I used to use a halter a lot. I'm not really too fussed whether I'm using a halter or a head collar, as I say, unless I have some issues with the horse leaning into pressure.